Allison. Thank you so much for being here today. It's wonderful to see you again.
It's great to see you too. Thank you so much for having me.
We always love having you. We love hearing your story, everything you've created. And I'm excited to share even more today with our audience. I would love to start off, if you're comfortable, by sharing a little bit about your caregiving background.
Happy to do that. So, my husband, Evan, was diagnosed at the age of 47 with frontotemporal dementia. And my kids were 12 and 15 at the time. And like all caregivers, right, I started like miles behind the starting line, it seemed. I had no idea what I was doing, how I was supposed to do things. So those first couple of years, as they are with so many people, were really just my main job was to be the glue that held my family together. And my other main job was to try and tell the future. And I was pretty good at the first, not very good at the second. And yeah, my husband lived with us. I thought he'd live with us forever. And we had to move to a new house because the one that we were living in was at the end of a dead end road, miles and miles from anywhere, and he wouldn't be able to drive anymore. So I saw a need to get us closer to town. I saw a need to have my kids be able to walk to school and start in a new school system because there were no schools within the distance close by where we lived. And so there were many, many adjustments helping them figure out the social scene at their new school, starting middle school, right? First year of high school. And then meanwhile, we've got my husband, and I'm watching my savings account dwindle and thinking, oh my God, at some point I need to get a job. So I'm completely familiar with the stuff that
Yeah.
dementia family caregivers go through, especially in those early years.
How did your kids handle that, all that change and transition and seeing the changes in their dad?
Not well. Like we moved to a new house, they started new schools. Their dad was dying. Their mom is trying the best she can to steer the ship. And I think in some ways were sort of in denial. So when they'd go to school, they'd try really hard to be normal. But they both struggled, especially my younger one really struggled socially and emotionally and wound up developing an eating disorder because he was trying to have some control in a life that was out of control. Everybody was seeing therapists.
Yeah.
And eventually, what happened is that the therapists, very early on, much earlier than I would have liked, said that either they need to move out or he does, because his behaviors, especially frontotemporal dementia, right? His behaviors had become so unpredictable and inappropriate for children to be around that 2 years into his diagnosis, he wound up moving into long-term care. And
Oh,
so then you have that whole
right.
world and burden, right? Like, oh my God, he's in long-term care and it's really, really expensive, but it's all I can do to preserve any possibility of my kids living normal lives. So, yeah.
Wow. It sounds like I was going to ask you, like, how did you get through that time personally? But it sounds like you mentioned therapy was one of the main ways that you did that.
Therapy was one of the main ways. I was acutely aware. Well, I joined a support group right away. I was very, very fortunate that one of the people I was a writer at the time, and that one of the people in my critique group had a wife with Alzheimer's disease. And so he shepherded me into a group that was for people who had spouses who were young. And that was, of course, a lifesaver. And it's the first thing I always recommend to people is find support, which is why I love you, because you provide
Right.
support and networking, community. I needed those things. I got it. I was also, through that experience, acutely aware of just how important it is for caregivers to take care of themselves. And so I made it a point to walk every day. I kept our nutrition up. I found people to socialize with myself and my husband who were friendly towards him because a lot of people didn't get him. So I think there were many things that I did right that allowed me to kind of pop through the other end intact.
Did you ever struggle with guilt in terms of taking the time to do things for yourself, or were you pretty secure in doing this is helping me be the best possible caregiver?
I struggled with guilt once he had moved into long-term care
Mm.
because if I were feeling like, oh my God, I really need to get a long walk in today, but I haven't seen him in 2 days. I really need to go see him. If I choose the walk, I feel terrible about myself
Right.
because I feel like I've let him down. So I absolutely struggled with the guilt, but
Yeah.
I also was pretty clear about the fact that he loved me. He was, he adored me. And I knew that he felt at some level, oh, he was aware of the impact that his way of being in the world was having on me and on the kids. And he was one of the kindest, most generous people I ever met. And I knew that he would say, hands down, like, take care of you. And
Mm.
so I could sort of hear his voice saying that. And also, take care of the kids. And the only way that I can take care of the kids is if I take care of me. And
Yeah.
so, therefore, that kind of allowed me to do some boundary setting around making sure that I understood the guilt. I could see it, I could accept it, but I also recognized that the more important thing was that I stay healthy and whole so that I could take care of everybody else.
I love that. So even in the midst of his disease process, he might not have been able to say, take care of yourself, take care of the kids, and these lovely things. Like you tapped into who you knew he was before this condition took place, and you knew what he would have said.
I did. I
Yeah.
absolutely knew what he would
I
have said.
love that. That's powerful. Now, I love you, Allison, because what I am always in awe of are the people who have been through the dementia caregiving journey.
Mhm.
They've had the real life, raw, heartbreaking experiences. They've seen gaps and things they wish were better. And then they decided to do something and to make something of that. And that's what you did with Zinnia TV. Can you explain, like, how did this idea spark? What made you decide to start this? And what is Zinnia TV?
Absolutely. I'll try to be succinct here. So, in a nutshell, just so people get what Zinnia TV is, Zinnia is a streaming service. So if you think of Netflix or Hulu, where you go to the app and you have all of these things that you can watch. So Zinnia has all of these things that you can watch. However, the content is very specifically been curated to be digestible by and engaging for people who are living with dementia. So what does that mean? They can't necessarily track a plot, tell fact from fiction, or process rapidly moving audio and video. And the channels are meant to be engaging and entertaining, but they're also meant to be, some of them sort of cognitively, there's some thinking that needs to go on, right? We have quizzes and trivia stuff. And there are videos that specifically help with activities of daily living to give people a sense of what's coming so that they have that sort of visual connection with the thing that's about to happen before it happens so that they are prepared. So, where all of this came from, when Evan was living in long-term care and I visited him, what I discovered is that our conversations became more and more transactional. So he wasn't really able to communicate very well in response. And so if I dropped the kids off at school and grabbed some groceries and got gas before I came to visit him, my conversation would be about, boy, you should have seen the traffic getting the kids into school today. There are so many parents who dropped off their kids. And oh my gosh, they have the nicest peaches at the grocery store. Here, I brought you one. Oh, the price of gas, right? So it was nothing that would allow us to go more deeply into who he is, who I am, or what our connection is. But what I discovered is that if I brought visual stimulus, that really drove sort of a deeper conversation, even if I was the only one who was talking. So thinking about things that he's into, right? He was a big hockey player. So if I were to bring his hockey gloves or a puck or a magazine, one of his hockey magazines, and let him touch it and look at it while I talk and sort of narrate the thing and narrate his experiences with the thing, it just felt like a much richer experience. And he would show a lot more emotion, right? An emotional response to the conversation. So eventually that shifted, or in addition, I started using my phone, right? Because I could bring up photos. Ooh, look at this, look at this. And I could also, I discovered, make little videos on my phone. What? Like I could clip together a bunch of photos. Apple's Memories product
Yeah.
sets it to music. And I thought, well, now this is lovely. We sit together, we watch this little video. I can pause it. I can talk about the things we're looking at. And again, that helped me feel closer. And I know it helped him feel closer because it was about our shared life together. So that's one data point. The other data point is that while those videos were great, I would often show up and find him parked in front of the TV, which was just sort of a thing that happened in a number of his care communities. He lived in five over the course of our time with dementia. And then I would walk into the room and I would find that he'd be like pounding his chest with his fists clenched, or he'd be shouting out swear words, or maybe he would be just sitting like this, like just kind of all balled up and or kind of looking around the room like get me out of here. And so I thought, okay, so this isn't working. Like regular TV is not working. My little videos are working. So I started doing a bunch of research and I found a paper called Television Viewing in People with Dementia Living in Long-Term Care. And it pointed out that for people who are living with dementia, regular TV isn't something that really holds their attention. And in fact, it can be sort of counterproductive. So the solution, let's put them in front of the TV, becomes part of the problem. And I thought, wait, but my little videos are working. And one of the things that the paper pointed out is that when they showed people living with dementia, I Love Lucy, Bob Ross, Jerry Springer, even, which they thought would be upsetting, and instead people just sort of didn't really seem to pay attention to it. The one video that they paid attention to was something called Venice, which was images of Venice set to slow, easy to listen to music. And I thought, well, that's what I'm doing on my phone. And so that led me to thinking, boy, I'd love to have like a slow paced, easy to watch hockey video or easy to watch whitewater rafting video, but I don't have any of that content on my phone. And so I reached out to friends who worked at Apple. My background is in technology and I have a lot of friends in that space. So I reached out to friends who were at Apple and said, how do I get more content on my phone? And they said, oh, well, there's this guy you should talk to who helped build that product that you're using to create those little videos. And so I just cold called this guy. Hey, I was told by this other guy that you might be able to kind of help me figure out how I get content on my phone. And I explained to him what I was doing. And he said, oh my God. He was one of the designers of the product that I was using. And he said, we never thought about that use case of how we could use our gentle video
Yes.
format to support people with cognitive differences. And so he turns out he's in Vancouver, BC. I'm in Seattle, Washington. We're just a few hours apart. So I just drove up there and we spent a day together and we started plotting out this idea for how could we not put more content on your phone, but how could we actually create videos that would be the kind of experience that you're describing and then have a way to get them out to people.
I love that. It seems like a major use case for Zinnia TV is actually helping the person with dementia feel more calm and connected and engaged with something that matches their cognitive ability. But I can't help but think this is also a lovely way to build a nice connection and more meaningful exchange between the person with dementia and whoever's with them. Like you could do this together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Most of our subscribers are family caregivers, and we intentionally keep it very affordable. It's $70 a year to subscribe. So most of our subscribers are family caregivers, but we're also in a lot of care communities where one of the things that they do is they have Zinnia on a tablet,
Yes.
and when families visit, they give them the tablet. Like, go get some conversations going with your loved one. And it also helps, of course, professional caregivers connect in a more meaningful way with the people they support.
Was Evan ever able to see Zinnia TV or did that come after his passing?
Yeah, it came after his passing, unfortunately. We were building it while he was alive, but it didn't become a thing until after he had passed.
Do you have any stories that stand out for people with dementia who maybe had a lot of agitation or seemed kind of disconnected that Zinnia TV, uh, showed a really great positive effect?
Yeah, I have.
I'm sure you have a lot, but if there's
Yeah.
one that stands out, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, one that really stands out for me, gosh, there's two that are pretty compelling, but one that immediately popped to mind. One of them is we were incredibly fortunate that a Canadian philanthropist loved us and very early on gave us funding that we were able to use for 2 years of research at the University of British Columbia in conjunction with Vancouver General Hospital. At the hospital, they had people who, for instance, had come in for maybe their care community had called, like, this guy's out of control, and they bring them to the hospital, right? And then the care community says, we don't want him back. So now they've got somebody who's essentially living at the hospital until they can figure out where he's going to go. And one of the people that they were working with was a gentleman who would quite regularly get into a very, very agitated state. And so they had set up an entire room for Zinnia where they had a projector that showed Zinnia videos on the wall. And in fact, they did that because they had a TV and this guy destroyed it. So they came up with this other system. And so they would bring him when he would start to get agitated. They say, "Let's go for a walk." And they would walk him to this space where they would queue up a video that they knew would be meaningful for him, which in this case was about cars, because the guy was crazy about cars. So they, the researchers, shared with us a video that they shot of this happening where they walk this guy into the room, and you see that he's got people on either side of him, and he's really he's not very happy. But he enters the space, and the cars are on an entire wall, and he walks up to the wall, and he turns towards the people, and he starts teaching them about cars. And so suddenly, and he's very professorial, and so suddenly he is the expert in the room, right? Somebody who is used to being treated as less than, somebody whose opinions don't matter, and suddenly everybody is paying attention to him because he's the guy. And you just see his entire being soften.
Mhm.
And wow. So we absolutely have heard from people who, especially in long-term care settings, who use Zinnia as a first step rather than jumping to antipsychotics.
Yeah,
Because
that's exactly what went through my mind was, we should never be jumping to antipsychotics immediately anyway, but
right,
sometimes it feels like that's the only option, especially if somebody has had, pretty agitated behaviors or disruptive behaviors, right? But I just thought, oh, what a wonderful example of how we don't need to jump to medications right away. And sometimes we just need to find the thing that can bring them comfort, bring them calm, give them
yeah.
something interesting to look at. So I love that as like, I could see Zinnia being something that reduces medication use.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I
Yeah,
love that. May I share with you one other, just because I
absolutely. Yeah.
fairly recent and it's so compelling. You asked how my kids are doing. Well, one of my sons graduated with a master's in computer science recently, but he was our summer intern last year, and he built for us this content generator using AI, but it allows us to rapidly build these quiz content.
Uh-huh.
And the quizzes are very slow paced,
Mhm.
multiple choice, beautiful imagery. The questions, there's just three answers that are possible, and they slowly start to fade away so that just the remaining answer is left. So you can't fail. We heard from somebody who shared with us that she was volunteering in a care community, and there was a guy, John, who was sort of locked up, and he was in a wheelchair, physically kind of locked up. He was in a wheelchair, non-communicative, and as far as everybody knew, he was nonverbal. So they showed him a quiz that was about American literature, knowing that he had been a writer for the LA Times, and therefore he might know a thing or two about literature. So the first question pops up, and he yells out, "Tom Sawyer." And then as the questions go along, he yells out the answer to every question. And she said, it was beautiful to see him. Like he gets this dopamine hit. Oh my God, I'm the guy. Look at me. I
Mhm.
have a skill still, and I'm able to use it. She said, but Allison, the bigger impact for me was watching how the care team
Yes.
lit up, and it was an unlock. They got that John's still in there.
Yeah.
Like there are ways for us to connect with John, but we need to be creative and clever and figure out what is the key that will unlock a connection with this person. And
Mhm.
they're dancing around him. And so suddenly, for the first time, he is visible.
Mhm.
And that is something that I just love.
I love that. I love it not only for John, but also you can see how now the perception of John by the staff has changed.
Yes.
Yeah, that's powerful. So, you've mentioned a car, American literature, a hockey thing. Do you have any idea like how many different subject matters or topics are in Zinnia TV?
Oh my gosh. That's a great question, and I've certainly never counted up. The first channel that we came out with was called the Interests channel because that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
I wanted something that would be the me to you connection. And
Mhm.
so we tried to create as many you possibilities as we could. So there's a channel that's just animals, there's a channel that's just travel, a channel that's just sing along. We have a faith channel.
Mhm.
But within that interest channel, I don't know, but I mean it's everything from baking to fly fishing to ice skating to sewing. And I have stories about so many of those where people have reached out and shared how this allowed them to gain entry into their mom's being.
Yeah, I love that. Also, I have to say, this is unrelated, but I can't keep my focus off of it. There's a beautiful drawing behind you. Is this something with you and Evan, or what's the story with that? Am I allowed to
It's
ask?
not, no, it's just a lovely, that one over there.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's just two women, and it looks like it might be in maybe the 1930s in Paris or something. And just the way that they're in a very sisterly way,
I love
hanging
it.
on to each other and looking over their shoulders at a common point.
Yeah.
That's what that is about. And I just, you know where I bought it, which is nutty? At my hairdresser. They
Really?
often have, which I don't go to very often, but they show artwork of clients of theirs. And I
Oh,
saw this and I was just drawn to it. I was like, oh my God, I have to have that.
I can see why. I mean, I'm drawn to it talking to you. So I apologize for that interruption, but I thought, what's the story here? Okay. So here's what to kind of wrap this up, because I think this is a really important topic and powerful. I think for many of us, we are accustomed to turning to TV to relax, for pleasure, for enjoyment. But for people who have dementia, and as the brain changes, that source that used to be a source of joy and enjoyment can actually turn into a source of fear, confusion, anger, irritability. And also, I mean, the truth is sometimes it's really helpful for the main careblazer to have something for their loved one's attention to be on so they can
Yeah,
make dinner or run, talk on the phone.
exactly.
They need that break too. And so I love Zinnia TV because there's tons of different subject matter. So based on what you know about your loved one, you can turn that on. It's calming, it's interesting. I've seen firsthand how it looks. And actually, Allison, what's the website they can go to if because I know they can get a feel for it if they go to that website.
Absolutely. So www.ZinniaTV. So that's ZinniaTV.com. Zinnia like the flower. Oh, there it is. Wait, it's on me.
Yes.
Um, and that's because I'm a big gardener and zinnias are my favorite flower. They last so long and they're beautiful even when I am not really so available to take care of them. Like they still thrive even when conditions are not ideal. And so that was what made me want to call this product Zinnia because I think we're trying to help people
Yeah.
thrive when conditions are not
ZinniaTV.com. I
ideal.
love that. What a beautiful way to for your husband's legacy to live on. But also, I loved hearing how one of your sons was still is still involved in helping make
Yeah.
it grow and make it better. It's like just a lovely thing. And so, Careblazers, if you're watching and you want to try this out, you can. Allison is so generous. If you go to ZinniaTV.com and you decide to sign up for a subscription, you can get 20% off plus a 14-day free trial if you use the promo Careblazers 20. And don't worry, I'll link it all below in the description for you. But if you have been following me for a while, then you know I do not post about people's things very lightly. I take it very seriously, and I want to make sure it's actually something helpful coming from somebody with a great heart. And Allison, I don't know if I've told you this, but Zinnia TV came to my awareness because one of our Careblazers brought it up. And in fact, my favorite products ever and services ever usually come from recommendations from our members. So one of our members who is still caring for her husband, she uses Zinnia TV and has found it so incredibly helpful. And that's how you entered our radar.
Oh, yay.
Yes. So thank you. Is there anything, Allison, you want to leave with our audience that maybe I haven't asked or you haven't been able to say?
Well, I think just to remember how important it is to take care of yourself,
Yeah.
and that if Zinnia affords you the ability to go peel that carrot or take a shower, then boy, am I ever glad. 80% of the family caregivers who have responded to our surveys say that Zinnia reduces their own stress. And that's what I'm here for, is to help caregivers live richer, fuller lives with less stress.
I'm here for that too. And actually, what just popped into my mind is the holiday season is right around the corner. And I know a lot of people, well, first of all, it could give you a little bit more time to socialize, make meals, decorate, things like that. But a lot of times, friends and visitors, this is a time they come by, have visits, and they sometimes don't know what to say or talk about with the person who has
Right.
dementia. I could see Zinnia TV being a lovely bridge and a connection there for those visitors and other family members to
Oh,
connect with.
yeah, I love that. And I
Yeah.
agree with you completely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Awesome. Okay. Careblazers, that's what we have for you today. Thank you for being here. Again, I'll link everything below so you can go check out Zinnia TV yourself. And Allison, thank you so much for seeing this need and then doing what it took to put it out there in the world.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Also, Nico gets a belly rub for every person who subscribes from this video. So if you haven't already, click the red subscribe button. It's totally free, and Nico says thank you very much.